RTX 50 series mobile is hot and incoming. Valve is going to be presenting with Lenovo for their handheld, and AMD is choosing to name their new GPU the RX 9070 XT. And we have benchmarks. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're gonna be going over the hottest tech news that I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Tuesday, December 24th, 2024. Yes, Merry Christmas Eve to everybody who celebrates. And we're gonna just jump on into the details of everything that's going on in the PC space. There is a lot more happening right before Christmas than I was expecting. Normally, this is actually an incredibly slow week when it comes to hot news. Not so this time, because we got details going around for everything. RTX 50 series mobile, gonna launch at CES 2025. Not necessarily the hugest revelation, but this is gonna be launching with the new Arrow Lake HHX CPUs, as well as AMD's Fire Range CPUs, according to this report from several different ODMs who make laptops that are gonna stick these parts inside of them, like Clevo, Blackwell, coming to mobile. We have some details on the 5080 mobile being about 60% faster than the 4080 mobile, according to benchmarks that I've seen. The 5090 mobile is also supposed to be in there, and we're getting new updates to laptops such as Asus giving you RGB all around the ROG Strix. This is likely gonna have the RTX 50 series as well as some new CPUs just jam-packed on into that, and we're expecting all of that to happen at CES, which is in about 2 weeks. UFD Tech's gonna be there. We're not gonna be at the Nvidia keynote because they wanted us to sign an NDA in order for us to attend that, and I just, especially with all the stuff that we cover here on Hot News, it felt like they could probably get us on some NDA stuff with everything we talk about, just in terms of the rumors that we discuss. There's ways to handle it where I can kind of just reference what I'm talking about specifically and not knowledge I have. It's just easier to not sign those things and instead just have free reign to talk about that kind of stuff here on Hot News. But well, Asus is looking to jam-pack a ton of RGB into their laptops. Today's video sponsor actually has the opposite approach. More minimalistic, more sleek, because Silverstone is a leader in PC cooling components. Heck, there's even a snowflake in their logo. In addition to offering high-performance CPU coolers in the form of the Argon V120, they're also sponsoring this video. The Argon V120 is a 120mm CPU cooler featuring a 46mm wide heatsink, so there's no worries about crunching your RAM. The spring screw-mounted design lets you install on the newest sockets from both Intel and AMD with ease. And being constructed of copper, the 6mm heat pipes efficiently draw heat away from the CPU and into the aluminum fins. Thanks to the heat pipe direct contact technology, or HDC, the pipes themselves are running through the base, making, well, direct contact with the CPU. The all-black 7-blade 120mm fan is perfect both visually and auditorially for a stealthy build. Anti-vibrational rubber pads on the corners help to reduce vibration and, by extension, sound. Being controlled by PWM functionality and ranging between 800 to 2000 RPM, your CPU is treated to smooth and efficient cooling performance. Keep your brand new CPU nice and cool by picking up a Silverstone Argon V120 air cooler today via the link in the description below. Huge thanks to Silverstone for sponsoring today's video. But while you can get the Silverstone Argon V120 right now, you can't get the RTX 50 series just yet. However, according to the latest reports, with the announcement of the 50 series taking place at CES, the 5080 is expected to launch mid-January, whereas the 5090 will come out a few weeks later. So it looks like the 5090 is going to be a little bit delayed. The 5080 is going to be the first thing that actually hits the market. That's alleged. We've seen that kind of stuff change in years past with different GPU launches. All of this, like this one's coming out first, and then this one, and then normally the order ends up not necessarily being exactly what we discuss here during the pre-release cycle, but it gives us some indication that, yeah, 5080, 5090 is the early stuff, and it looks like 5070, 5060 are gonna be a little bit later on down the line. And while you're not gonna pick this up as a gamer, I'm just excited for it because it shows a lot of the pinnacle of technology that Nvidia is trying to bring out, which is their Blackwell Ultra chip. We're getting details out about that now, with the GB300 allegedly gonna be featuring up to 288 gigabytes of HBM3E memory, which is more than the 192 of the GB200, and it's gonna have a 1400 watt TDP and a 1.5x performance in FP4 versus the B200 version. And then on top of that, it's also gonna have incredible networking technology going to the Connect X8 cards, which is gonna give it 1.6 terabits per second of data transmission. It's just gonna be a massive server GPU all around, tons of RAM at really fast speeds, tons of GPU cores at really fast speeds, tons of network capacity at, again, really fast speeds. Looks like a big thing to be reckoned with. And ARM and Qualcomm were reckoning with each other. They had their lawsuit. The entire thing played out basically last week in a Delaware court, and we already have the results of that lawsuit happening. So Qualcomm was essentially defending the fact that they acquired Nvidia and used their technology in their products. ARM said, hey, that violates the licensing structure that we had with both Nvidia and you, Qualcomm, so you either have to pay up or you're not going to be able to use our licensing anymore. So this got decided by a jury, and it turned out mostly in Qualcomm's favor, with them deciding unanimously that Qualcomm did not violate the ARM licensing agreement and that they're not necessarily liable for all of this stuff that's going on right now. The thing that the jury was hung on and couldn't actually unanimously decide was whether Nvidia violated its contract, not necessarily Qualcomm. So ARM has come out and said that they're gonna potentially seek a new trial against Qualcomm, appeal some of this, specifically on that Nvidia issue, not the Qualcomm issue, because they can't issue a retrial allegedly for that Qualcomm licensing issue. It's just gonna be on the Nvidia side of things, but ARM suffering huge loss when it comes to this lawsuit. They're not getting the payment that they wanted. They're not getting anything really that they sought out to get when they started this lawsuit. It's kind of the opposite way that I thought this was gonna go, but we'll keep you posted in case ARM decides to pursue more legal action against Nvidia moving forward. Now I wanna see if Reece is gonna pursue some deal action here on Christmas Eve. Hopefully he's got something for you.
Yo, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals out on the internet. Happy almost Christmas to those of you celebrating, and hey, look at that, I brought some gifts for you in the form of deals. Starting off today, we have this Height Revolt 3 SFF ITX case, available in black for only $59.99, making it $70 off. And then next up, we have this Alienware 34-inch 3440 by 1440 165 Hz curved QD OLED gaming monitor, going for only $552.49 with included promo code, making it $347.50 off. And then lastly, we have the LG B4 55-inch 4K 120 Hz OLED Smart TV, going for only $799.99, but it includes a $100 Best Buy card, so if you shop there often, you get a little bonus. And this brings you to a total of $600 off. And hey, with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description down below, but until next time, I'll hand you off back to Brad for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Well, Reece, we got a surprising deal when it comes to the next generation Lenovo Legion Go handhelds. We've already been covering this quite a bit here on Hot News. We've seen leaks of the Lenovo Legion Go 2, which is going to have that Z2 Extreme chip. We've also seen leaks of the Legion Go S, which is essentially the regular Legion Go without the detachable joysticks, but it had a mysterious Steam button that you could see on the handheld. And now reports are coming out that with Lenovo's announcement on January 7th, which is going to take place at CES for their next generation handheld, they're gonna have some special guests there, which includes the Steam Deck co-designer, as well as other people from AMD, Microsoft, and Valve. So it's not clear what this means. Is the Lenovo Legion Go S going to be a SteamOS device like is being speculated right now? Will this mean that this might be a dual boot situation where you have both SteamOS and Windows because Microsoft's going to be part of it? Or is the Legion Go 2 just going to be a Microsoft Windows device and the Legion Go S is going to be SteamOS? Or is there going to be some new matrimony between Windows and Steam for handhelds to just kind of make it a bit more amicable and easier to use? Remains to be seen, but Valve at Lenovo's event gets me excited. I would love another SteamOS device, even outside of the Steam Deck. They're doing great jobs with their hardware, but I want to see other companies move on, try out their stuff. So the more the merrier, in my opinion. And I know I've talked about putting one of these APUs in a handheld. It wouldn't make sense for battery life, but I don't care. I would want it. And now we have more benchmarks coming out for the upcoming Strix Halo APUs for the 8060S and 8050S mobile GPUs that are going to be in the Ryzen AI Max Plus Pro 395 and Max Pro 390, 16 cores and 12 cores and 40 compute units versus 32 compute units, all of that going on. This isn't a pass mark test, so it's not necessarily gonna translate to games. Synthetic benchmarks hardly give you the full picture, but the 8050S outperforms the 8060S, which obviously is kind of weird. We don't know the TDP settings or everything else, but you can see that it performs right around a Radeon 7 integrated GPU, tying with the Radeon 7 5700 XT and the RX 7600. So integrated GPU, even in synthetic, matching some very top tier graphics cards, things that used to be really great back in the day, things that are like acceptable now. The 7600's a $260 graphics card. You're now getting that baked in to an integrated situation. I love it. And I gotta be honest, I don't love AMD's move with their desktop GPUs, but we gotta talk about it. So you can see right here, we've got the RX 8800 XT reference design being leaked. There's a leaked promotional image of what AMD is trying to promote, and that's a GPU we haven't seen before. Allegedly, this is the next generation of reference cards from AMD, the 8800 XT, except for it's not, because now, according to a bunch of different leaks out on the internet, it wasn't just one person who said this was substantiated across several different places. That's gonna be called the RX 9070 XT. Yes, they're going to be copying Nvidia's naming scheme, their naming nomenclature, to reflect that number zero situation that we have. So you can see here the lineup that we're expecting is going to be 9070, 9050, 9040, 9070. All of those numbers are going to be included both for desktop as potentially well as mobile. We also have already talked about this with Strix Halo. They have the same naming scheme, so it kind of makes sense that this rumor is lining up. We have the 8060 and 8050. So they're in the same idea. So it looks like the RX 8000 and up are taking on this new naming scheme, whereas the RX 7000 and below have the previous naming scheme, because we're expecting a refresh of the RX 7000 with the 7750, as well as the 7650 GRE and several different mobile variants coming out to the market. So it looks like this is happening. It's consistent across the new laptops. It's consistent across the new desktop GPUs, and it's consistent with how AMD has chosen to go about their branding strategy ever since Ryzen came out. The reason they call it Ryzen 3, 5, 7, and 9 is because they are just directly copying what Intel was doing with the Core i situation. Core i3, i5, i7, and i9. Intel already shot themselves in the foot with the branding there, but that's not where it stops. You might remember that Intel came out with their Core Ultra series for Meteor Lake. Those were called the Core Ultra 100. Then Lunar Lake, which was the more recent launch, was called the Core Ultra 200. But guess what AMD did? They called their new laptops the AI 300 series, so that way they're named the same as Intel, but one above them. That's exactly what they're doing. They also did this with their motherboard naming when it came to the Ryzen chips as well. You had the X370 and B350 motherboards come out for first generation Ryzen when Intel was launching their Z270 motherboards. Then Intel launched their Z370, but because that was getting confusing with AMD, they also launched a Z390. So it has been AMD's MO for the last better part of a decade to take what their competitors are doing and just copy that and not have any branding of their own and just basically be, hey, we're you, but slightly higher in number. And that's exactly what's going on with these desktop chips. RX 9070 XT is higher than the 5070, which is going to be coming out from Nvidia. Listen, performance, we're going to talk about benchmarks in a second. I don't like this move. It looks cheap. It looks like AMD's not setting the vision, or they're not standing behind the competency of the hardware themselves, and instead they're playing marketing and naming gimmicks, and it's frustrating. And it's frustrating with things like the Strix Halo being called the AI Max Plus Pro. How many marketing interns did you have to pay to get them to copyright that for you? It doesn't look like it comes from a place of strength or knowing who you are as a company and the value that your products bring. And so you can't speak against the performance of stuff, right? Like Ryzen's doing very well compared to Intel. The GPUs, maybe not as much. And that's exactly what we're finding out in the benchmarks. The 9070 XT being benchmarked in TimeSpy, so a synthetic benchmark, which is actually where AMD tends to do better. They tend to do better in the raw horsepower side of things, and then kind of fall apart when it comes to gaming benchmarks, but it doesn't look good for them here. The 9070 XT, which is supposed to be the highest end card, allegedly we're gonna be receiving of this next generation, is about on par with the 7900 GRE and about on par par with the 4070 Ti, which I will remind you is about to be replaced by the 5070 Ti. So the 9070 XT matching previous generation graphics from Nvidia as well as from AMD themselves. So this is going to mean that pricing is going to determine exactly what's going on here. The 7900 XT beating the 9070 XT by about 16.5%. That's a pretty big gap. So it's tying with the 7900 GRE, which was a $550 card. That's already been discontinued. We talked about that in last week's episode of Hot News. So the 9070 XT theoretically should not be at $549, because why would you get that instead of just buying a 7900 GRE being used? I would hope, and I know this is wrong, I know that this can't happen. If this benchmarking situation is correct, the 9070 XT should cost $449 for it to be sensible. It's not gonna cost that much. My guess is it's gonna stay at the $549 to $599 price point to kind of match the 4070 Ti Super. That's where they're gonna position it against, that $800 card. 9070 XT is $600, but it gets very close. That's the kind of marketing idea I think they'll go with, which makes sense right now, but it's not gonna make sense once the 5070 and 5070 Ti come out. And it's the same frustration I kind of have with Intel. The B580 makes sense in December, but again, once the RTX 5060 and the I guess RX 9060, 9050, whatever comes out and is at the same price point, it should theoretically beat out what Intel's delivering. So there's a lot of unknown information. There's a lot of change happening. When Nvidia made the rebrand from GTX 10 series to RTX 20 series, it felt like Jensen had something to say and something to prove, and they were gonna back up their naming change. I don't know that we necessarily have that with AMD here. Let me know what you think of the naming change down below in the comments, but just so you get a further idea of what's going on with the architecture underneath all of these, anything that's RX 8000 is gonna be RDNA 3.5, and RX 9000 is gonna be RDNA 4. At least that's the breakdown according to what we know. And additionally, the 9070 XT should bring FSR 4, as well as we should be getting the Ryzen 9 X3D chips all launching at CES. It's gonna be a big CES. There's a lot of stuff going on. Allegedly new GPUs on desktop and laptop side, new CPUs happening. It's gonna be a big CES when it comes to computer hardware. And you guys had a lot of big comments to talk about on Friday's episode of Hot News. That was a banger of an episode for whatever reason. We got Adam Bomb saying, I'm gonna be 50 or 90 by the time I can afford one. Funny. See what you did there. Jello saying, I believe that Nvidia no longer is for the gamers, but for the enterprisers. That's where the money is. And then Not So Samurai saying the 4080 and 4090s are still too expensive. I don't even want to know how much the 50 series will be. Well, then you shouldn't have watched Friday's episode. Speaking of Friday's episode, Falcon Northwest commented saying, thank you, Brett and the UFD team, for the awesome information you find every day. BTW, that list of palette card names, is the first time Brett has ever run out of breath, which is not true, but I see what you're saying, especially because there was another comment from Skinder saying, how much Adderall does this guy rail before shooting the video? Kinda, those comments are the same vibe. None. I snort, short, shoot, rail, no Adderall. I'm on no performance enhancing substance besides my daily cup of coffee, so I've always been this way. And I don't think it's gonna change. And after doing Hot News for 6 years, I'm just kind of settled into who I am. So, sorry if it's too much for you sometimes. That's just who I am. And I hope you are having a great time. We're not gonna have an episode of Hot News tomorrow because the entire UFD Tech team is taking off for the holiday. We should be back here on Boxing Day or December 26th for another episode. And we'll try to close out the year strong here for UFD Tech. Just wanna say thank you to everybody who's watched. This has been a record year for us in terms of viewership, in terms of what we've been able to accomplish as a team. We've grown a lot more when it comes to the UFD Tech team. A lot of stuff's been shifting behind the scenes. Everybody who's watched our Twitch streams, our shorts, as well as participated in our charity streams. We've done a lot as UFD Tech this year that I feel like we're finally back on track from where we left off in 2019 when I had to shut down our South African operation to move back to the States. 2024 felt like the first time like we're on the rails again, and we're going down the path that I wanted to go down. There's still things that we're going to change for 2025. We're still trying to tweak a few things behind the scenes, getting more than just Hot News out in terms of long form content. But I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you for sticking with us this year. We'll be back again, as I said, in a couple days. See you then.